Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nerd Ledger. I am Cage, and today I want to talk about Spider Man Brand New Day. Okay, and this will be full spoilers ahead. So if you haven't watched it, hey, you should watch it before you listen, unless you don't care. Um, Most of it's already been spoiled anyway for people like the day after it came out. But yeah, I haven't like organized my thoughts fully. I'm just gonna talk really. I saw Spider-Man Brand New Day on Wednesday the 30th, like the Amazon Prime pre-show thing. Um, that and then I saw it again on the weekend with my wife because she wanted to see it. And here's the thing: the headline of Spider-Man: Brand New Day, and the thing I've been telling people who ask, this is what I tell people to not really spoil it, but to give them an idea of what they're gonna see. If you like Spider-Man and you like comic book Spider-Man, early days Spider-Man, um, it's the most Spider-Man movie that we've gotten. And what I mean by that is you this is the essence of Spider-Man, of Peter Parker. This is a kid who is going through everyday normal struggles, but also has a responsibility to be Spider-Man. He has everything more or less going against him in life, and still chooses and continues to choose to do the right thing. And that is what made so many people fall in love with the character of Spider-Man, and what keeps him as an enduring character. And yeah, I mean, there are always going to be people who criticize the newer movies because none of these villains are really Spider-Man's villains. Like they're all they all have different motivations and this and that. And I don't really care about most of that. Like the reality is, in my opinion, Tom Holland really embodies the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man better than anybody else. And they gave him a lot more of the things that people felt like were missing in this movie, which is a lot more of the web slinging through the city and the quippiness and things like that. But yeah, I'm gonna say, just because of how Spider-Man-y this movie is, I love the movie. We get a lot, right? And again, people will criticize a little bit, like the quote unquote villain of the movie. Again, spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. But pretty much Jean Grey is the villain, in one way or another. And there's a lot of mystery around her character and what she's trying to do, and the way she's doing it, like the methods. And there's always going to be people who say, well, how can they introduce, Jean Grey, the X-Men, this, super character as a villain, and like, is she irredeemable, like, because of the things she does in this movie, and how can we, blah, blah, blah. The reality is, none of that fucking matters because Scarlet Witch was introduced as a villain, and people love her. She became a villain again in Doctor Strange 2, and people still love her. Loki is a villain, and people still love him. That's the reality of this situation here. Is sure, she does some questionable things in this movie, and you can argue that she had a reason to, but again, it doesn't really matter why people do awful things. There's usually another way to do those things. They'll find a way to make you like her character more if you don't already like her, and they'll set you up for failure again for when maybe a Phoenix thing happens in the future. But to me, that's kind of it's a minor thing. Like, people will make a big deal about it, but it's almost a minor thing in terms of this film. A lot of the rest of this, I mean, that's the main crux of the film, is Jean Grey and her pursuit for her sister, and all the other characters and story points kind of surround that. But really, we have Peter here, who has no money but somehow has a bunch of technology, which again, that doesn't bother me. There will be criticisms of that, like, oh, he has no job and he has no money, and he's like living in this attic, and how does he have a 3D printer and all this stuff. It doesn't bother me. Like, Tony Stark could have left him some of that stuff. Like, there could be any number of explanations. The film didn't take any opportunities to try to explain it, so I get it. People will have issues, but didn't bother me. But yeah, Peter, he's got the same routine every day. He buys flowers to bring to Aunt May's grave. All he does is, try to be Spider-Man, be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, take care of business. And he's working with DeWolf, the detective, and he's got a good relationship with the police, which is cool. And they do a lot of very Spider-Man things, right? Like, these are the things we love. And part of that is Peter is living in this new reality where nobody remembers him. He lost MJ, he lost Ned, he has no friends. Like, he's just Spider-Man, and he's been, and they do the sequence, like this 4-year sequence of where he's been and what he's been doing, and that's where we get all the classic comic book covers with Tarantula and Tombstone and all these other great characters. Really cool sequences, Amazing Fantasy 15, all really cool stuff. And that's kind of what we expected, is that to be more of a sequence of where he's been and what he's been doing. But that loneliness and that that hardship weighs on someone, and you kind of compound that with now Jean is mind hopping into people, and it gets him seeing MJ and Ned again in person, and all of these things kind of compound to where it overloads his nervous system. And I think there's a deeper, like, psychological and physiological aspect that you could take from this, right? Because our bodies are similar to where when things happen to us, or even minor things, if you have trauma, if you have things that you haven't fully processed in your life, you kind of have these reactions. Your body will have reactions. And, part of therapy is understanding why and how that happens and how to address it and your mechanisms to control it and different things like that. But essentially, that's what Peter's going through. Like, he doesn't know how to process his loneliness over the last 4 years. The fact that everybody he's ever loved and been friends with doesn't know who he is. And that's why this spider inside of him is taking over and affecting him. And I'm really glad they didn't do the other, because to me, that's way too abstract for most viewers. And they did man Spider very minimally, like just some of the things that happened, but they didn't give him the arms and the fur and the face and all that stuff, which is fine, because again, I don't know if people are ready for that necessarily. So I like the way they did it. That also encourages Peter to develop an inhibitor to suppress the mutation. Which, if you're familiar with X-Men, and I'm sure you've seen X-Men movies, there are inhibitor collars and things of that nature. So are we to understand that in the MCU, Peter Parker created what would become the technology to, suppress mutant powers? Maybe, maybe not. It's possible that if this kid can figure it out, other people can figure it out. Bruce Banner also had, his inhibitor to prevent him from becoming the Hulk. And so, but you could credit Peter Parker with the technology to castrate mutants, more or less. So there's that. And then, of course, there's lots of twists and turns. Jean Grey probably is one of the bigger ones. But she, her becoming MJ and then the rooftop scene, I think that really hit people hard. I remember seeing it for the first time, and like when she like remembered, people were all like clapping and stuff, and I'm rolling my eyes because I also thought it was pretty corny if that was how she'd remember. But I also suspected that it wasn't really her. And we kind of get the first hint when he's flying with her and they land, and like he's like, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "Fine," because we know MJ gets queasy when swinging through the skies. And so when she was like, "That's right, Peter, holder. Oh my god. But I wasn't like shocked by that. I was like, oh, but everybody's like, oh my god. But like, yeah, I guess that shit, like that is fucking traumatizing shit. And again, the Peter still makes the right choices despite everything that's happened to him and the wrongs that he's suffered and the trauma and everything else. This is why we love Spider-Man. This is why for me, there are so like a lot of emotional moments in the film, because you just love this character and you love the the humanness of the story, right? Like at the end of the day, right? It's a comic book movie, but it's the core of it is a human story, and that's where Marvel has always succeeded. And when they don't succeed as much, it's because they stop including some of those human elements of the stories. And like Peter Parker, Spider-Man is the most pure human story you can find when it comes to comic book movies. And that character work is what sets the stage and what really like allows Spider-Man to succeed. This movie is the best performing movie of all time, pretty much at this point. It made over $1 billion in like 5 days. It outdid Endgame's opening weekend, which is crazy because the thing is, no Spider-Man movie up until Far From Home made over $1 billion, and even Far From Home, like a lot of people have their problems with that movie. I really enjoyed the movie. I don't know, people just don't like it for some reason. But like that, and then No Way Home, and now this, all $1 billion. Like that's success, right? And Spider-Man should be hitting that success. And the fact that it's outperforming Avengers movies is incredible, and it's great, and it means that most likely we'll have more Spider-Man in the future because this was the last solo film in the deal with Sony, but as long as there's success, they'll continue to make Spider-Man content. And I think Sony has realized it's in their best interest to continue a deal with Disney for Spider-Man. Other parts of this film, really, like the MJ stuff is deep, right? And we get Black Widow in this movie, Yelena, and she's great. And now everything is small and in big potato, minuscule potato. So this is one of the best Spider-Man movies that's ever been put out. I know people all have their rankings and all this stuff, and listen, I get the nostalgia with like the Tobey Maguire movies, and I do think Spider-Man 2 is incredible, but Brand New Day is... I just like Tom Holland Spider-Man better. I like Tom Holland Spider-Man the best. And the films, I know there's a lot of hate for Homecoming as well, which is crazy to me, because I quite like Homecoming. But yeah, I think there are other bits of this movie that people will debate. Obviously, does Ned remember Peter? No. If MJ doesn't remember Peter after all of that, Ned does not remember him after a handshake. Like he's coming to other realizations, like maybe that MJ said like Spider-Man's name is Peter and things like that. Ned does not remember Peter Parker. Okay. The post-credit scene, it could mean anything. I think they're trying to throw us off. It could be that Tom Holland Spider-Man has left Earth and he's going to Battle World. It could mean that they detected a different universe. I mean, it can't be a different universe of Spider-Man because, like, it's Ned's app. It exists in this reality. It doesn't necessarily exist in another reality. Why would somebody in another universe, even if they have the Spidey tracker, why would that ping back to this universe all of a sudden? Because when other things have pinged, yeah, no. I don't know what it means necessarily, but there you go. Spider-Man's in space somewhere. The other thing, like there was this theory that like when Jean Grey was holding everybody, she like helped release the memories to MJ and Ned, and people think this because MJ's like crying, and then she's holding the Black Dahlia that Peter gave her, and when Ned goes, "Oh, Peter," no, because if that were the case, Ned would have recognized him as soon as he walked in the shop, not from the handshake. And he doesn't remember him. Like, if MJ doesn't remember him after reading the letter, after him telling her that he loves her, and she straight up says, "I don't love you because I don't know you," like, Ned's not going to remember after a fucking handshake. Like, utterly ridiculous. The Punisher relationship with Spider-Man is great. I love all of that. I don't care that some people think there's certain things out of character. And then you get people doing the weird, "Oh, I didn't think a PG-13 Punisher could work, but it worked." Of course it fucking worked. Like, bruh, do people not, like, know that in comics for a long time Frank Castle was like a PG-13 character? Sure, they did all that like Warzone and whatever rated M kind of content in like the late 90s, early 2000s, whenever that was, when they did Alias and all that stuff. But like, again, people said the same thing about Deadpool. "Oh, I don't want a PG-13 Deadpool. It can't work. It can't." Of course, it can fucking work. Like, I get it. Like, people only know what they've experienced, and a lot of people have only experienced certain versions of Frank Castle. And yes, being R-rated does lend itself, better to telling the stories you want to tell with Deadpool and Punisher, because you can be a lot more violent, you can show a lot more blood, like, you can do a lot more with that rating. But that doesn't mean you can't do it with less, because they have done it with less. So I don't really get that, but yeah, big fan of the relationship with Peter and Punisher in this movie. The Hulk, getting Savage Hulk again. We needed we needed that. What's actually funny too is like how when I think it's ironic, and maybe it's supposed to be, but when Peter's talking to Yelena and she's like, "This is small potato, we handle massive potato, you handle small potato." Peter can unironically like one tap every member of her team. Like, what you mean? He's dealing with the small potatoes, you're dealing with the big potatoes, bro. He will wipe the floor with all of you motherfuckers. You guys can take him 5-6v1, and he'll knock the fuck out of you. Like, what you mean, a small potato? But yeah, I mean, it was good to see Scorpion back as well. People do feel a little gypped, I guess, like that. He didn't have a bigger role. He wasn't a bigger villain, but guys, it's he'll be back. I'm sure they'll do more, hopefully, with Matt Gargan, and maybe they'll go Matt Gargan for Venom over Eddie Brock in this reality. We'll see. But that could be something as well, and especially now that they've established this long relationship, 4, 5, 6 years or whatever, that Scorpion is known Spider-Man. So yeah, we'll see what happens with all that. But the other thing, right, is some people did criticize, I saw, like, when Peter let Jean into his mind, and like the conversation from Aunt May was with Jean, and people were like, "Well, we should have got that with Peter." That didn't bother me either. Like, Peter doing what he did to, save Jean and all this stuff. This is the core of Spider-Man. This is why we love Spider-Man, and that's why I love this movie. Okay? And then obviously what Frank does for him in the hospital and stuff, like, it's just incredible. I think it's an amazing film, and I really liked it. I like all the action sequences. I like the web slinging. It's great. And I'm very happy. Very happy with it. So that's my review. I'm not sure if Chair will see it. If he does, obviously he and I will probably discuss it more as well. But that's my review for Brand New Day, and I'll probably see it again, to be honest, because I think it's great. It's a wonderful film, and it's Spider-Man. It is my Spider-Man. So yeah, that's it. Much love. I'll be back to talk about a lot of other things because there's so much to talk about. House of the Dragon, final 2 episodes. Maybe I'll probably do them each individually. But yeah, love it. Spider-Man Brand New Day. Check it out. I will say it's like a 9 out of 10 for me. And that's it. Goodbye. See you next time.